if I'm hungry and I try to go and make a meal and make some decision for myself, I wind up making a decision that I later am like, that wasn't the decision I would have made had I not been hungry. So if I cook my food way ahead of time while I'm not hungry, or I go grocery shopping while I'm not hungry, I just make better decisions. And so if the meal is there ready for me when I'm hungry and I don't have to think about anything, it's just easier for me to stick to whatever plan I'm trying to stick to. Danny Polishchuk.
Let's do this. How you doing, man?
Welcome to the American Glutton Podcast. I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm very good. I'm a little tired, but you're 3 hours behind me, man. You must be a super early riser, huh?
I'm in New York.
Oh, you're in New York. Oh, for some reason it said West Coast or something. It was okay. All right. Well, then disregard.
Yeah. My producer Paige is in Los Angeles, so when she sets these up, it's often.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm often doing mathematics. Like, you put it at 7 a.m.
That makes sense, because I was like, man, this guy's dude. I thought you were like a crazy go-getter. You're just 7 a.m. podcast.
7 a.m. I've already been to the gym. I've had 2 meals. I get up at 2 a.m.
Yeah. Ryan, my buddy Ryan did a sketch where it's like, it's like eventually like the morning routine guys, and you're going to bed at 6 p.m. and it's just like, why do you get up at 2? You're like, well, I go to bed at 6.
Yeah. And like, what is the end is like, no, just don't go to sleep. Just be awake all the time.
Yeah. You're just injecting yourself with amphetamines, just around the clock, just to stay super performing.
You are a comedian, and your comedy, like, I think, like, if it was 2020, like, did you get canceled? Did people try to cancel you?
Not really, but only because we were like, in 2020, we were so unknown. Like, me and Ryan, we do a podcast, the Boys Cast, together, but we used to live in Canada, and we basically moved in 2019 to the US, to New York, because like Canada, there's just like not that much going on comedy wise. Right. So we moved to New York. So we were kind of like relatively unknown, and then not really. Like, we had some push. We always get pushback, but not really that much. Like, but the main thing is there was never really anything to take from us. Like, we had this weird freedom where we could kind of do whatever we want, because we weren't nobody was writing us a check, Like, you can't get canceled until someone's writing you a check.
Yeah.
And look, not really.
I don't want it to seem weird. It's not, you're not right wing. You're just funny in a way that is not politically correct. And that doesn't even, like, it's so weird with comedy, because like, I think that the idea of like canceling people was like, if you step outside any boundary at all, we're going to come after you. And a lot of comedians just step outside those boundaries because it's funny.
Yeah, exactly. And like in Canada, Canada is definitely different. Like, in Canada, it's everybody, like all the industries, like so far left there, where because we were kind of making the same kind of jokes in Canada, but like nobody's paying attention to what's going on in Canada, really, so nobody cares. But like people were like, oh, you guys are like right wing. And I'm like, I voted for Justin Trudeau, unfortunately, but I did. Right. Like, like the first time, like when he was still cool. But people are like, you're right wing. I'm like, but it was more just like, you're like, oh, these are like these topics where you kind of can't touch. And if you're going to start joking about these things, then they were just like, everybody always has to just kind of put you in a box, and they got to be like, you're either this or you're that. And then we started making fun of like me and Ryan were very early to making kind of cracking jokes about all like the gender stuff going on. Like, I remember we were making jokes about this stuff in like 2016, where people were like, what are you even talking about? Right. Like, literally people were like, I don't even know what you're talking. Like, we were like terminally online, and people were like, what are you even talking about?
Yeah, I had this
So,
conversation
but
with
anyways, no.
I had this conversation with my kids probably around that time, because there was such, like, in my lifetime I saw so much progress in the gay movement, like from the time I was a little kid, where if there were two moms or two dads, it was just unusual at school. It was like, what's that's
Yeah.
like not a record scratch, but it catches your attention and you're like, this is not like everything else. This is unusual. To the point where my kids, that doesn't happen. They, my youngest kids, it's completely normal to have two moms or two dads at any of their schools, and it's not unusual for them. And I was asking my older kids who were in college at the time, what do you think the next thing like this is going to be? And they said it's going to be trans. And at the time I was like, what? That's not on my radar at all. And then it blew up and it became the next thing, and it was a thing.
Yeah, yeah. And the trans thing is like, it's not even more so much the trans. Like, I mean, if you want to be trans, like, I don't really care. And obviously, they shouldn't be discriminated against or whatever. It was more like the crazy, it was more the non-binary stuff
Right.
because, like, that was the one where I'm like, it just wasn't making a ton of sense as I guess as much to me. And there was just so much comedy there. Like, the trans thing, like, I actually have a really distinct memory growing up, and I used to work at the mall. And I remember seeing, like, this was like in the 90s, and I remember seeing like a trans woman walking around, and I was just like, man, that must be just like so fucking hard. Like every person is just like staring at you kind of thing. But it was more just the people who were just kind of like weaponizing their identity for power, where they were kind of like, oh, I'm this now and I'm this now. And you're like, okay, this one doesn't make sense to me, where you're just kind of bopping around from thing to thing based on,
Yeah,
sometimes
it's
it appears convenience almost.
right. It's that, I was a punk rock kid, and so like I wanted to like opt out of society and be against it as a kid. There was a lot of rage, but I did part of my expectation was like, I don't want you to accept me. I don't need you to, I don't need approval
Right.
from you. I'm going to do this thing. And so with the pronoun things where it's like, I'm opting out of your game of the binary of gender. Okay, that's fine, but like, don't expect society to conform to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. That was, yeah, yeah. That was like the main one where they're like, you have to kind of be on board with this. Like, and they were trying to be like, oh, we're so like, nobody accepts us, and you're like, every bank has a pride parade float. Like in Canada, it's like this is the most like mainstream kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
anyways,
Okay,
but
so
no, we
listen,
haven't.
I bring all that up, Danny, because you're a
Yeah,
comedian. I'm a fan of your comedy. I look at you
thanks, man.
on when I watch your comedy, I perceive zero uh uh self-doubt or introversion, or like, I don't look at you and think like, gosh, you need. But then we kind of started talking because of Ninja Creamies, which for me, a Ninja Creamy
Oh, dude.
is only to get like ice cream that has no calories and lots of protein. You know what I mean? Like, it is
Yeah.
a diet hack. And then you're telling me it's a
Oh,
diet hack for you, and that you're like going through stuff too. And so like, I'm interested. I like want to hear about that. I want to hear all of it. What's your journey? What's your struggle? What are you achieving?
yeah. I mean, I actually was thinking about this. I'm like, are there people who like have a Ninja Creamy and then they're just making like full fat ice cream kind of thing? Like,
That would blow my mind when you can buy Haagen-Dazs and you've spent the time and money to make your own. Okay.
yeah. My brother's a big foodie, and he lives in Vancouver, and I was like, you should get one of these Ninja Creamy things. They're amazing. And he's like, he's really like kind of skinny guy, and he's just like, no, I'm getting just a regular ice cream maker. I go, oh, okay. I guess that's the other side of this coin. It's
It,
like I'm just playing a
yes.
normal ice cream maker.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But no, no, I'm just, I'm trying to I'm 40 years old now. And I don't know, you know, it's just everything starts kind of catching up to you. Like I played in this comedian softball league, or not comedian, a New York softball league, but we have this comedian team yesterday and we played like 2 games. And I'm like, I could fucking barely walk today. It's crazy. Like all I could think of is I was like, man, I used to play when I was like a teenager. My friend's dad would play in this like adult men's softball league. And me and my friend, his son, were like the ringers. We were like 16. And we would just go play and we'd play like all day. And then we would finish and we would go play ourselves for like 6 hours. And I'm just like, how did those guys even do this shit? I'm like, I look back, like I see it now. And he was probably like my age, almost around my age now when we were playing. And I'm like, God damn, I'm like, my calf's tight, my ankle's like all locked up. My tricep is hurting. Like it's just crazy. And it's just softball. It's like, it's not even high impact. Like to think like LeBron James is like my age playing in the NBA's.
Yeah, it's
Wild.
madness, total madness, and works out every day and is the hardest
Yeah.
training guy.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I'm just like, man, I guess, you know, genetics is something. And I guess if your job is to keep I mean, Goggins is like also that guy. You're like, Goggins is probably older than me. And he just goes and runs these 50 miles a day just because he feels like he's being a bitch or something.
Right at 2 a.m.
At 2 a.m. Yeah, he doesn't sleep and just 2 a.m. just goes and rips it. But yeah, I'm just trying to, you know, I was, you know, just trying to be healthy, I guess. And I got in my old age, high blood pressure and all this shit. Nothing too serious, but yeah, you know, I'm just it's one of those things where I'm just I'm a huge fan of we actually had Dr. Mike on our podcast, Dr. Mike Israetel, who I believe you
Yeah,
know. And that's like kind of I really like just going to the gym and I literally put his videos on, but I just listen to them when
right.
I work out. And honestly, he's given me some of the like that guy has some of the best advice. Like if you're just trying to, you know, lose some weight or get jacked or whatever. I mean,
He really
obviously,
does
one of the pieces of advice is just take. Oh, I'll just say one of the pieces of advice is just take tons of steroids, but you don't have to do that.
Right. That is his best advice. No, I think there's something so interesting about bodybuilders because they are kind of putting, you know, I think as much effort as anyone into losing fat, right? They just got super
Yeah.
scientific and good at it and they're disciplined. And you know, I think they would be the first group to tell you like don't do anything too extreme, which is like a lesson that took me many
Funny.
years to learn.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I always used to just kind of go do. I was literally exactly the same. Like I would just go do something crazy, and then it's the classic thing too. Honestly, listening to Dr. Mike. Dr. Mike, I wish I found him like so much earlier because he was just like if you're just trying to like you know take off like a pound a week kind of thing, it's pretty fucking easy.
Yeah.
Like if you're just willing to be like, hey, I'm just gonna play this like the long game here, pretty easy. Like, you know,
And
to just
also
kind of slowly.
statistically the most the that's the kind of weight loss that kind of is most sustainable too when you take it off slow.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah, that too, because you're not doing anything that you can't keep up, right? Like you know, I don't have to change my life too much. The only real thing, like probably this year, I kind of, and you know, I go in these waves. I don't know how it is with you, but like I'll go in these waves where I kind of just get out of it. And then a lot of times, actually, my main thing has always been, which is I go to the gym, I'm like working out hard, and then I get injured. And then the injury kind of takes me out of it while I'm waiting to heal. And then my diet kind of starts getting shitty. And then you're just, before you know it, you're kind of, and also going on the road doing comedy, like that does not help really at all.
The road to
But
me would be the
yeah,
worst
yeah.
nightmare. I
It's,
listening to Dr. Mike and having conversations with him, um, one of the things I took away real early on was like to use much lighter weights and get super strict with my form and then slow everything down. The road is and I think that anybody can relate to some level of it where you have if you've figured out some structure in your life and you're moving along messing up that structure or throwing any kind of distraction into that structure can be super hard. And the road to me is just all it is a break in routine, but like it's a sustained break in routine that throws a
Yeah.
lot of unknowns into your life.
Yeah, and you're like, you're traveling. One, it's like, if the alcohol becomes involved, then I don't drink a ton really, to be honest. But if you do, then you start making bad decisions, and sometimes you're tired. You're at the airport, and you're like, I don't want to eat the healthiest thing that they sell at the airport. You know what I mean? Like you're just, I don't want to do this. But I will say the Dr. Mike thing, getting a step counter, that is because I live in New York too, and that is maybe one of the biggest game changers because New York City, if you live in New York City, it's the easiest city maybe in the world to get a bunch of steps in. Like
Yeah.
there's nowhere easier. And like I was just like, what, at first I was like, what, I'm gonna get 10,000 steps. Now I try and get between like 12 and 15,000, and it's like pretty easy.
Right. It's like,
And then I don't have to
I'm
go
going
on
to
a
go to this other
treadmill.
park. Right. Yeah.
Right. And then I'm like, I don't have to touch a treadmill ever. Like I don't like, I don't even do cardio. Like I just get 12, 15,000 steps a day. And then, cause I used to like to run, and then running was the same thing. I would run, get banged up, and then I'm just like something. And then I'm, out of commission for however a month or whatever. And then you're like, then you lose kind of you like whatever endurance you might have built up or strength, and you're like, okay, I got to start all over again. Whereas walking is like anybody, you can walk. Like the worst case scenario is you're like, at the end of the day, you're like, oh, I'm a little tired. I walked 20,000 steps today, but you wake up the next morning and it's just back to normal.
Yeah. Walking is amazing. And it is true. Anybody can, I mean, obviously somebody in a wheelchair can't walk, but they have whatever their version of it is. The easiest part of moving around, just getting more movement could be
Yeah.
so beneficial. Um, I find when I'm not in New York City, my step count is so embarrassingly low that like I then do have to get on an elliptical machine or a treadmill or something like that just to pump it up.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Like if I'm gone, if for example, like if I'm on the road or something, I will try and because you will end up in these just shitty areas all the time where you're like there's nothing around, so I'll just make a point of just go for a walk or whatever. Or if it's winter time, I will go on a treadmill, but it's because it's kind of just the only way to really do it. But here it's just so easy. You're like, man, you get off of a subway stop a couple stops early, or I have spots where I'm like, yeah, I could take a 10-minute train, or I could just walk 20 minutes, which is like not that big of a deal. Like it's not even like a lot of times it doesn't even cost you that much time.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah.
But that is for people trying to get some cardio. If you hate cardio, just walk outside. It's such a game changer.
Yeah. Walk outside. Uh, what was the impetus for you making these changes? Like you were active and athletic as a kid. Did you find that you gained some weight or slowed down when you got older? Was that
Mm,
it?
I was no, I was like I was always pretty. I wasn't like huge or anything. Like I was never like massive, but I was always had some extra pounds for sure. And then I would just lose the weight, and then but I started like weight training probably in my 20s, like probably like 15 years ago, where like I've been going to the gym, but I would go through these phases. Like I don't know if you ever done this, but like I would go through these phases sometimes where like I would literally have 2 years where I just wasn't doing like any kind of progressive overload. Like I was just doing like you ever see like just an old man go to the gym kind of thing, and they're just kind of I think the term's like fuck arounditis, where you're just kind of dicking around the gym, and like I'm doing something, but I was never really like meticulous about tracking it and all this stuff. And then 2 years pass, and you're like, yeah, I have been going to the gym, but I don't think I accomplished a single thing. I just have been living, just kind of getting active, I guess. Whereas then, in probably like the past, and I would just always go, it just always goes, and you know what it is? It's always, I see a video of me. Like I like earlier, probably in January, we went on tour in Europe, and then we had these. I was watching some clips. I was like, "Oh man, like I'm kind of getting up there, huh?" Again, and then so I kind of just was like, "All right, gotta dial it in." And then the meal prep actually was a big one too. I know you're a big guy, meal prep guy, but that helps so much. That I never used to do before this year, really, but the meal prep thing is huge.
Yeah, I think that there's for me if I'm hungry and I try to go and make a meal and make some decision for myself, even if I'm like actively talking myself through the meal or whatever, I wind up making a decision that I later am like, that wasn't the decision I would have made had I not been hungry. So somehow
Yeah.
if I cook my food way ahead of time while I'm not hungry, or I go grocery shopping while I'm not hungry, I just make better decisions. And so if the meal is there ready for me when I'm hungry and I don't have to think about anything, it's just easier for me to stick to whatever plan I'm trying to stick to.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm like pretty natural. I'm not like super lazy, but I am sometimes lazy. And so, you know, to just have a thing where I just like, go, I put this in the microwave for 3 minutes and that's it. You don't even get a chance to really think about anything. You're just
Yeah.
like, I have this in the fridge, put it in the microwave, and just like in 8 minutes, I'm done my meal and
And
we move on with it.
and you move
It's
on. Yeah. Versus I'm really
yeah,
hungry and now I'm going to make something that's overly delicious and add extra oil or not really measure my carbs or pick up
yeah.
my phone and order something on Postmates or Uber Eats or whatever the latest app is.
Right, right. Although I will say that I always thought because for in terms of go to like if I'm ever out and I need to get something, man, Panda Express. I always thought Panda Express was like the worst shit because it's like Chinese food and they use tons of oil, but they have a one. I think I saw it from maybe Dr. Mike or somebody, but they have this like teriyaki chicken thing there where it's just chicken thighs. Literally, like the whole thing is just chicken thighs and greens. I'm like, it's pretty decent for like eating out
Yeah.
in terms of like macros and stuff.
Yeah. And my
Nothing
kids,
else you can eat there though.
no,
You can't eat
right.
anything
No,
else there. The only
no,
thing, but
it is difficult, but there are options. Chick-fil-A has non-breaded chicken tenders that are pretty good. They're made
yeah,
with breast meat
yeah,
and like I know you can get a bowl of decent stuff at Chipotle. There are definitely options. I've never walked into any of those places when hungry and gone, this is what I'm going to get. And it's not going to be super difficult to pass up, you know, the,
yeah,
the pork dish at, I don't even know what it's called, or Kung Pao chicken or whatever, the breaded chicken,
yeah,
just
yeah,
my body is
yeah. The
saying,
orange
no,
chicken.
yeah, the orange chicken. You're gonna get that fucking steamed chicken shit. Get this one. This one is gonna make you happier.
Yeah, yeah. I somehow have like avoided that. I do think too. It's like if you go to the gym enough, then you're kind of like it's like you start feeling like it's like I'm training hard, and this is kind of gonna negate that a bit. So I definitely feel the more you train, but you get banged up a lot when you lift weights.
I don't, but I don't lift heavy at all. I really, even more lately, have been going for higher rep counts in my sets simply because I have tendonitis in one patella on my right leg. So like I have big leg issues. I have no meniscus in the other one. I've been doing rehab on my leg.
Oh,
So
damn.
I haven't even been doing heavy leg days for a while. I was doing heavy leg days for a long time and aggravating everything. Um, and then it just got so bad. Like I find myself in New York walking up and down stairs much more, and going upstairs is completely fine. Like I don't notice anything. Going
Yeah,
downstairs, my legs shake no matter what day it is, as though I just did a crazy leg workout. Um,
really.
yeah, it's awful, and there's like a little bit of pain involved. But they really just get like muscular fatigue going downstairs. That's as banged up as I get, but like upper body banged up, no. But I just don't do anything heavy, and for progressive overload, I just add sets and reps, and I am trying to
Yeah,
get to failure, not every set certainly, but like towards the end of like a 6 week training block, I am like, okay, I got to do this until I really can't do it anymore. And then I get, my nervous system gets fatigued, and hopefully that's stimulating some growth. But I'm also really just not trying to put on any muscle. I'm
Yeah.
probably still technically too big. Um, I have gotten to a ratio of body fat percentage to lean tissue that I'm pretty happy with. So I'm just like, there was a while where I was training legitimately like a bodybuilder, and it just
Yeah.
took so much time. And I like
So
had
rough on your body.
it's rough on your body. It takes a long time. And I had to like be real honest with myself. Like, part of it was that I had loose skin, even though I've had surgery to remove skin. I still have loose skin. And I was like, well, I want to fill this with as much muscle as possible. But the reality is like, I would have to be as big as the real like mutant bodybuilders to fill that loose skin. And even then, I'd have loose skin and be disappointed. And so, like, what am
Right.
I really trying to do here?
Yeah, you just want to kind of feel good. And yeah, that's like I always get kind of I always get with not even the ego lifting because I'm not in there like going crazy weights or whatever. But I'm just like, oh, we'll just like add 2.5 pounds this week, and then just one day I'm just like, oh, my fucking shoulders fucked all of a sudden. I'm like, when did that happen?
Yeah. Yeah. No,
And it's
I've,
not for anything. It's not even necessary. Like that's the thing. Is like you could just
right.
do. You're like I could just do less weights and more volume and
Yeah.
accomplish literally the same thing.
That's my biggest key, because I have had knee surgery. I have had my bicep repaired. I have, when I was riding bicycles like a true maniac, I had accidents that took me out of it. And to your point, like, being sidelined is so severe to my mental health, and I do think it all for me comes back to my mental health. There's like, unfortunately, the only word that I think accurately describes it is narcissism, but I have like this overwhelming amount of thought about myself. It's just not positive. It's not like
Yeah,
the kind of narcissism where you go like, that guy's gross because he's so narcissistic. But I am truly thinking about myself all the time. It's just that I'm thinking about how I don't fit in, and how I'm fat, and how I'm not muscular enough, and how I walk funny, and how my hands are a little shaky, and like, all of that overwhelms me with feeling like a piece of shit. And the only word that really describes it
sure.
accurately is narcissism. And so I'm like going like, stop thinking about yourself. Fucking think about anything else but yourself. This is not healthy.
Yeah, I think that's pretty normal though. Like I remember, people do like I don't know who said it, but I'm sure lots of people have said it, but people, they won't do stuff in their lives, like they won't take chances because they're like so worried about what other people think. You're like, people just think about themselves. Nobody cares about what you're doing in your life.
Right.
Like I remember when I started doing stand up and I was like, man, what are my friends going to think when I'm like doing stand up or whatever? And I'm just like, nobody gives a shit. Like nobody cares about other than, themselves and maybe their like immediate family, but like nobody's really thinking about other people in that way,
Yeah.
where they really
Yeah.
care.
No, it's true. And then the people that matter, like my wife, when I try to break down one of these things about myself that's driving me crazy, and at first I explain it to her. Do you notice when this thing about me? And she's like, why? And it takes me so long to describe it in detail. And she's like, yeah, I guess I know what you're talking about. And I'm like, yeah, doesn't it drive you crazy? And she's like, no, I never think about it. But like,
Yeah,
when you elaborately paint the
yeah.
picture, I know what you're talking about because I know you. But like, I never consider it one way or the other. And it's like, oh, okay. And so I guess, what the fuck does it matter if some stranger is thinking, look at the way that guy walks? Isn't it stupid? It's like, who fucking cares?
Yeah, nobody cares. And they probably are, and also like in New York City, you're like, man, there's 8 and 10 million people or whatever. Like, there's so much shit going on. But yeah, I know the thing where you're like, man, like you'll be at the gym and you're like, you're like, oh man, I'm not lifting that much weight. You're like, nobody gives a shit. Like
Nobody
nobody's
gives a shit.
watching nobody's like tracking how much you're lifting and whatever.
Yeah.
Like nobody cares,
My
which is,
favorite
it's a good thing to, yeah, go ahead.
my favorite thing at the gym is often I'll see like some fucking animal who's like got this crazy physique and they don't have crazy weight on the bars, and I'm like looking to try to see, are they doing some little trick where they, it's not
Yeah.
just a bench press, they're also going to like do a backflip or something, or then throw it over there, turn it into a skull crusher at the same time, or whatever. Like, what crazy thing are they doing with that lightweight? And then it's like, no, they're just doing a bench press, just like you do a
Yeah.
bench press.
Yeah, exactly. And again, you don't know. They might be like, yeah, my shoulder's fucked. Like, this is
Right.
all I can do. You're
Yeah.
like, I'm just doing all I can do, because sometimes you just get these little things and you're like, all right, well, I can either go to the gym and work through this, work around this, or like my shoulders are jacked right now. So like I have to do my dumbbell presses, like with my elbows kind of way more in. And I was doing them kind of more out before. And then I'm just like, all right, this is what I'm doing now until this kind of gets us sorted out.
Yeah. Do you ever mess around with like the pec deck or cable flies or anything like that? Because I know that.
I Yeah. So I hate the pack deck. I don't know if it's just, but I used to go to this gym in Williamsburg, and they had this pack, but it was one of the pec decks where it's like the bar, it's not the handle, it's like the old school, like with the pad.
Yeah.
And just, I don't know, I hate that one. Like the way it moves, like I can never feel it. Like I can literally never feel it in my chest. I just feel it in my shoulders. I'm like, I don't think this is how this is designed for me to just feel like a fucking burn in my shoulders. So I'll do the cable flies. I like cable flies.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't do dumbbell flies. Like dumbbell flies for whatever reason. I'm like, I think because I used to play baseball a lot, and just like I cannot feel it in my chest. I don't know if my shoulders are just like a little too weak or whatever, but like I can't feel dumbbell flies in my chest at all.
Yeah. I don't mess with dumbbell flies, but for me, it's because I have this bicep injury, which it's stupid. You shouldn't be affecting your bicep at all, but that angle where you're kind of outstretched and holding the weight. And I find with cables, I can just get a lot more weight and tension in my chest than I can with dumbbells, and it's less
Yeah.
awkward. But yes, I'm with you um, on that. What is your diet like? Like when you're dialed in and your routine is squared away, what are you doing? Are you doing like a basic, like what
Uh
Mike advocates for?
yeah. Basically, yeah. I mean, if the just eating lots of protein, I try and get like 200 grams of protein a day. I'm like 220 right now. So I'm just basically 200 grams of protein a day is the goal. And then I just make these every week. I just make like, a dozen boxes, like meal prep a dozen boxes, and usually on Sundays takes, 2 hours or something. And and then, although I will say, because this is one of the things, just kind of getting into this, is I always used to, think like, oh, potatoes are so bad for you, and then, but you're like, no, boiled potatoes are actually great. They're like, I compare a thing of boiled potatoes and white rice, and you're like, oh, it's kind of like way more food, and if you do them right, you can kind of just make them taste like mashed potatoes. Like my wife, I make them for her, and she's like, this is bad for me, right? I'm like, I'm telling you, I'm like, it's just boiled potatoes and some cottage cheese and some garlic powder or whatever. I'm like, this is totally fine. Like, it's not bad at all. And then, but I just make the boxes, and then if I have to eat out, which I try and go to Panda Express, or just not too bad. But I will, I'll still go and get dollar slice of pizza occasionally, if I can, like if it's allowed. And yeah, and I just, and I get a lot of steps. I find the steps helps me a lot. Like that's like my main
D-
thing.
Do you find living in New York particularly difficult? You come from Toronto originally? Is that what
Yeah,
you
yeah, I'm
said?
from I lived in Toronto for 10 years, but I grew up just like outside of Toronto.
So I mean, I've spent a decent amount of time in Toronto, and there's certainly great food in Toronto. I remember the first time I worked there, I discovered that there was like a truly deep Italian community in Toronto,
Yeah, yeah,
and like
yeah.
chicken parm sandwiches and and meatball sandwich, like just like insanely
Uh,
high quality Italian food, which was super dangerous, unfortunately. But I don't think
yeah.
there's anywhere on the planet that has more of just tightly packed, condensed, really high quality, delicious food than New York. You and
No, no,
because
no, there's
we're
not.
walking so much, we're walking by virtually every time. And for the longest time, it was like New York had shit Mexican food. Not true anymore. Now there's great Mexican food here.
Oh, incredible. The trucks, some of the
Yeah,
trucks in Williamsburg are like amazing, like so some of it, like I'd be like, this is as good as when I went to in Mexico City.
yeah, yeah. And like name your type of food that is your weakness, and New York will have it, and you will walk by it any given day. And is that particularly hard for you?
It's not, I mean, the pizza is definitely, I like just to force me to walk. Because the thing is, in Toronto, pizza's terrible, unfortunately. It's gotten a little better in the last like 5 years for so what I'm told, anyways, because I haven't lived there for 5 years, but it used to just be like so bad. Like it was literally like just fucking terrible. But the pizza is probably the one for me that is maybe my weakness, but I try not to eat it too much. It just depends how, like, if I'm really just focused, dialed in, then I just kind of I can ignore it. And if I'm, kind of a little like, well, my I'm not super restricted, like I'm not like on a hard. No, I never. I don't do like a hard cut or anything though. Like I basically at most I'm like I'm trying to get negative 500 calories a day kind of thing. Like I've really like that has been like the biggest kind of thing for me. Like it's just like don't try and lose 3 pounds a week. You'll be
Yeah.
miserable. You're not going to keep it up. And then I'm sure you've been there where you fail and then you're like, well, then what's the point of any of this, huh? Let's just go fucking ham.
Yeah, the for me the hardest thing about that is how quickly the weight comes back.
Yeah.
If you're at negative 500 calories a day and you're thinking generally I'm eating the way I want to be eating, like I'm not imposing these huge arbitrary things like no bread, and some people have celiac and can't eat bread, although there's so much good gluten-free stuff now. But whatever it is, like some people are like have a thing where they don't love bread, and so it's fine. They can never eat bread again. But whatever it is for you, that you're taking in this arbitrary idea and adding it to your diet, that is gonna be a hardship at some point. That for me,
Yeah.
I just couldn't do it. You know what I mean? Like and every iteration of that, from blood type diet, where it's like I have this list of food and I can eat as much of any of this as I want. Well, then I just don't lose weight because I'm overeating all that food. But
That was me with keto, actually. I remember
me
trying to do
too.
keto and then like you lose that's the thing is like you lose the, whatever amount of water weight. And so you go, oh, I'm killing this
Right. eight
but that's,
pounds this week. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you go, okay, well, that was all of it. That was all the water weight you're going to lose. And so now you're done with that part. And then you're like, oh, I can just eat all the almonds I want. It's
Yeah.
amazing. I
Yeah.
can just eat handfuls of nuts. And you go, no, 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 it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. No,
And then I'm miserable because can't eat all these things. And then but I can eat all the fucking almonds I want. And then I'm like not losing weight. And what's the point of this?
when I found Dr. Mike, I was doing a version of keto where it was keto, but I also believed I just had to be hungry. So it was like not actually tracking calories, but it was a low calorie keto because
Yeah.
I had stopped losing weight for months and months and months, and I was being diligent, and I had gotten my total carbs, I think for a while I was at 50 grams of carbs a day, and then I went to 30 grams of carbs a day, and then I was doing clean keto, right? So that's like you're not even like grinding up your pork rinds and mixing them with cream cheese to make
That,
shit
so,
bagels.
that sounds like hell.
Yeah, it was fucking awful. And then I discovered like, you can lose weight, do it slowly, and here's what maintenance means. And I think that idea more than anything was like, oh, if I want to, if I want sustained weight loss, then I have to put in adjustments forever. Like otherwise I'm just going to gain weight when I'm not
Yeah.
dieting. Um,
Yeah.
it's a tough pill to
I mean,
swallow.
yeah. I will say though, the biggest thing where it was from Dr. Mike where he said this, and I was like, holy shit, I can't believe I've never like I'm 40 now, but like I'm like, I can't believe I never thought of that. Was he's like, when you go to try and lose weight, he's like, you have to have an end date. Like you have to have like a date where you go, this is over. And I never did that once in my life, like up until literally this year, where you're like, okay, like after this date, like we're done for some period of time. It doesn't have to be like, a year or whatever, but it's like it could be a month. But you're like, to just have a diet that doesn't have an end,
Yeah.
he's like, it's fucking crazy. And I'm just like, oh man, I'm like, because I would just literally, I'd be like 240 pounds and be like, all right, I'll just be done when I'm 200. And you're like, yeah, good fucking luck.
Right. Yeah. That's called famine,
Yeah, exactly.
the
But
never
it's,
ending diet.
yeah, the never ending diet. And you're just like, you do like, he's like, it's crazy to start a diet and not be like, this is the date when we're done this phase of it.
Well,
So, like,
but isn't that how most diets are sold? That just you
yeah,
implement this one change and you do it until you are where you want to be. I just find that I never got to where I wanted to be on any of those diets. And so
this is
few people
impossible.
have. Right.
Yeah. Whereas like Dr. Mike's like, yeah, it's like go, 3 months of or whatever, maybe eight weeks, 10 weeks, where you're restricting yourself, and then go on some sort of maintenance phase where you'll just, kind of be happier again, and you're less restricted, and then go on another cut, and then do that like kind of, like this thing, instead of just the straight line down where you're like, what, you're just on a cut for a year? Like that's crazy.
The,
But that's like literally that's what I try to do.
yeah, but there is a version of me that heard diet break or maintenance or no more dieting and thought like, okay, this means I don't have to think about anything. And the reality
Yeah.
is for a guy like me, maintenance is just as much effort as a diet. So you are in fact still
Yeah.
dieting. You know what I mean? It's still
Yeah.
a version of
Like you're still
restriction.
tracking it. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
still tracking it. But it's more so just you're like, I'm not, like hungry maybe as much. Even though I honestly am like, I don't really get hungry. Like I make these like super high density like meal prep bowls or whatever. Like a lot of times, like, it's like you can just eat a half a pound of ground beef. Trader Joe's actually, there's one by my house, and because you can't get this a lot of places, but they have 96.4 ground beef.
It's the best. Yeah.
It's like literally like chicken breast. It's like the macros of like almost like chicken breast, like almost. And I'm like, man, I finished one. I eat like I tell Ryan, I'm like, yeah, I eat like a half a pound of ground beef, and he's like, really? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, it's not that bad for you. It's crazy.
Yeah. Half a pound of ground beef, a whole baked potato, some broccoli, and a little cottage
Yeah,
cheese to make it all taste delicious. That's a great meal.
yeah. I know, and I'm just like, dude. So sometimes I'll eat that, and I'll literally I'll eat that, and then I'll go out to do shows, and I'll walk by a pizza place, and I'm like, I don't even think I could eat a slice of pizza right now.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
like, this thing's sitting in me like a fucking stone, I'm like, I can't even eat it, and it's pretty healthy. It's like the whole thing's 500 calories or something.
Yeah. That's amazing. Dude, I'm so glad you found something that works for you, that you're happy with, and and you're
Yeah,
having success, and don't hurt yourself in the
yeah,
gym. And and
yeah.
I cannot wait to trade Ninja Creamy recipes with you. I'm still
Dude, you have
dialing
any
in my
good
base.
ones?
I've been fucking around with skim milk. I did one with unsweetened almond milk. And I can't honestly tell right now if skim milk is that much better than water.
Interesting. So I used I tried both Fairlifes. The
Yeah.
only ones I've really made so far is I go the Fairlife milk, and I can't tell any difference between the low fat and like the no fat one or
Right.
whatever. I can't tell any difference. Obviously, the main difference, I guess, is that once you refreeze it, like unless you kill that whole pint. But like once you refreeze it, it's a fucking stone. Like
yeah,
because
you gotta
it's
respin
water.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to respin because it's like the water. I guess that's the difference between like Haagen-Dazs. The reason why Haagen-Dazs like doesn't, but like you can just eat it out of the freezer is because it's super high fat content, right?
I think
Versus super
so.
high water content. Yeah, yeah. So, but water, I haven't. So what do? You do water, and then what's like what do you mix
Water
in
and
with
whey
it?
protein. Water and we make whey protein. We make a chocolate and vanilla, and I've just been using those two as bases. And one spin doesn't do it. It's still got.
No, yeah,
It's
yeah.
still.
You get that shit where it looks like snow almost.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But one respin and it's wizardry, man. It is
yeah.
insane. I can't believe it.
Yeah. I'm still trying to figure out like because you got to like spin the bottom and the top or whatever. And then sometimes you'll do like you put like the mix in stuff or whatever, and then you spin it and it's like only in the top half, and then
Yeah.
I'll still press the bottom half and it's like not down there, and I'm still figuring out. And then sometimes I'll have like some mix in or whatever, and then I'll accidentally press the respin button instead of the mix in button, and then just pulverizes it. Like
Yeah.
you're like you can't even tell there's anything in there. But
Yeah.
dude, that thing is amazing.
It's wild. And it's limitless. We did a chocolate. So I did the Fairlife, the 50/50 high protein milk, skim milk, so no fat.
Yeah.
I did a cup and a half of that, 2 scoops of whey protein powder. So already we're talking about like nearly 70 grams of protein and,
Crazy.
like 5 grams of carbohydrates or something like really nothing. And I did a half a teaspoon of mint extract, and it was,
Dude, that's what I have too.
it's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Although I was eyeballing it at first because mint chocolate chip ice cream is like one of my favorite ice creams. And so then I eyeballed it and I put in so much mint and it makes it like so bitter. I was like, oh, this is like so gross. And I still ate it, but it was, I was like,
Yes.
it's like the mint extract is like so powerful. I'm just like, oh, this is terrible. But yeah, that is, you can do, there's probably people like YouTube channels where they're just, all they do is just crank these things out. But I find the non-dairy, because my wife is, she doesn't like the dairy protein. She's like vegan or whatever. Like she's not actually vegan, like she eats fish and stuff, but then she's like, likes to, but anyway, she does the non-dairy protein powders. I find aren't as good in the Ninja Creamy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like those protein powders just because I don't like them, and I can't imagine I would suddenly like the taste just because it was creamified. But
yeah,
pea protein,
it's a consistency of them. They're like a little chalky.
Yeah, I don't love that, and even but this happens to me with everything. Like I found I don't know if you're familiar with this Legendary Foods pastries where it's like, it's like a Pop-Tart and it's got 20 grams of protein, 108. So like I ate one of those and was like, this is magical. I'm eating a Pop-Tart, and then gave one to my kid and they spit it out and said it was gross.
Yeah. Once you're in that, you go, oh, these taste amazing. And you give it to a regular person and they're like, this tastes like shit.
Right. This is not ice cream. I did try with my oldest kid to give her some of this protein powder ice cream, and she was like, this tastes like protein powder to me. To me, it no longer tastes like protein powder, possibly because of the consistency.
Right. I mean, I had even last night, I had like literally just the low fat, the skim Fairlife, and just Jello chocolate, zero sugar chocolate pudding mix, which is, I put in like half a packet, which is, I think it's like maybe 60 calories for half a packet. I'm like, this doesn't taste like, Haagen-Dazs chocolate ice cream, but it's pretty damn close.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's once you get that ice cream consistency that it can make after like whatever 3 spins, you're like, man, this is pretty damn close.
Yeah. And I've been eating Halo Top for so long, and this kicks the shit out of their macros.
Oh, way better. Way better. Tastes better too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it tastes way better. Yeah, it's the best. We'll share some recipes.
The adventures in ice cream. Danny, thank you so much, man.
Dude, thanks so much, man. Yeah, it was awesome. Good meeting you, man.